So I want to talk today about what's oftentimes in the way of us getting what we want, just to keep it in pure and simple terms, right? And there's some things that you and I have been talking about that we didn't really know what was in the way, you know? And there's a lot that you don't. And what's really frustrating is you're giving it all you got. You're going to church, you're tithing, you're doing what you're trying, and the results just aren't there. And there's a lot of things, but today I just really want to talk about the alignment that brings the results. Because I think you and I've learned over time, like there's this spiritual alignment, this energetic alignment that when you get spirit, soul, and body all together, things just start to happen. Unstoppable. But when you can feel it inside, when there's misalignment, or call it cognitive dissonance, like it just seems like you're just punching at the wind, or you're just, you're pushing uphill and things just aren't working. And I know I didn't even have eyes to see early in the journey. I didn't even know what I didn't know. And so I could probably look back on my 28, 29, 30-year-old self and be like, dude, I hear what you want and you got a good heart, but like, you got to clean some of this up. You don't even realize like you're getting in your own way.
And that's what the wilderness is for, is really cleaning us up, refining us.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, right? So you've brought up like silver and dross, like the process of refining metal, and it purifies this metal. It doesn't give anything to it. It doesn't add anything to it. It's a process that removes all the stuff. And so even you have a raw piece of gold, there's still glitter, there's still some shine, but it won't ever be its potential until the dross, the things that don't belong, have been removed
by fire.
Right. And it's really those things are standing in the way from it reaching its fullest potential. So let's talk about what we see, what we've experienced, who we were, things that we did. Hopefully people start to have eyes to see through our vulnerable sharing, like, okay, I got this that I need to deal with. Because sometimes you deal with one thing and you move again. And then you deal with another thing and it moves again.
Yep.
Normally you don't have to do it all at once. So there's probably like one thing that you'll hear out of this that, like go to work right now on this one thing. You might feel it move. So just hearing me explain, like, what are you seeing? What was important in your journey? Like we've talked about things being in the way that had to be like pulled out of you and you be refined by the process.
Yeah. Well, I think a big thing is we don't really, like you said, we don't really know what's in the way. We don't really even know what needs to be removed because we don't fully know our own hearts. Like David said, search my heart, O God, and show me if there be any wicked way in me. Like he recognized we don't even fully know what all's in there. And so I feel like it's a process of that being revealed to us. The Lord knows what we need.
Yeah.
And so we go on this wilderness journey. We go on this walk with him, and he's taking things out that don't belong and he's putting things in that do. And sometimes we're almost unaware of it until we look back and say like, wow, he took that from me and I didn't even know I needed to get rid of it. So like, I mean, I have a lot of things
Well,
in my
like
past. Yeah. Like, so this is not a throwing stones conversation.
No.
It's not a judgmental conversation because we've been there too.
Yes.
And parts of the story are not pretty. So like, I'll just speak to as a woman, as a young woman, before I knew who I was in the Lord, before I knew who I was in the world, I was trying to find my own way, and I didn't have like value inside of myself. Like I was always looking to the outside, to external things to try to give me purpose, to give me meaning, to give me value. And so I didn't dress appropriately. Maybe a couple decades, like from the time I was probably 12 when my dad passed away, when I went into the first like foster family that I lived with. I remember I used to walk around in a sports bra and shorts all summer long. Like I didn't want to wear a shirt because it was hot and that was my excuse, but really I thought I was hot, and so I'm not going to wear a shirt, I'm just going to wear a bra. Yeah, so the boys look at me, so I get some value, so I get some attention. And, that proceeded into middle school, high school, into my 20s. Like I couldn't find clothes apparently that didn't show like half of my midriff or plunging necklines that showed everything else up top. And that was really almost applauded by the culture. And this
right.
was in the 90s. And so now it's like almost expected, I feel like, culturally, of young women just to show everything, show the goods. Like
Not even young women.
women,
Go to the
yeah,
beach.
yeah, just
50-year-olds,
social
60-year-olds.
and it's like we're giving ourselves away to the world to try to get this approval, to try to get this attention. And it really just, it brings back this respect from the world. It's like on the one hand, it's called for, and on the other hand, it's like, oh, you hussy, you slut.
Well,
I mean, it's
let's
just,
talk about why that's a problem. So I was telling you the other day, I love my TikTok followers. God bless you. You follow me on TikTok. But when you follow me or you comment, I check out your page, see what you're up to, see how I can help. Honestly, that's why I'm looking. What are you doing? I want to support you if you're doing something good. It is not uncommon. I have a lot of female followers, and you go on their page and they're praising God on my videos and wanting more. Good hearts, pure hearts in there. And you go into their page and they're just like you say.
can't see their heart for the cleavage.
Right. And it's kind of all about me and trying to flaunt what they have or they don't have and wish they had or whatever. And like I'm not trying to be judgmental, but like you don't even know, like that's not going to get you what you want is the thing. And if you're honest with yourself, you do these things because you probably have a broken heart and you're longing for someone to say, you have something to offer. I see you. But as long as you're desperate to get some other man or woman or notoriety publicly, you're missing out on the power of God's blessing. And I don't believe, like, I'm not super religious to think that God's judging you. I think he's just like, man, I've got so much more for you. But like, that's not the way you're going to get it. Like, my blessing doesn't come through like begging for people's attention. My blessing comes when you offer and you serve other people out of the love in your heart. And these people obviously have love in your heart. You should see the things they say in the comments.
Yeah.
But they're living out this wanting God to bless me over here, yet believing that he won't over here and trying to get some man's attention.
Yeah. And it's that whole struggle of every believer. Like, we are sojourners passing through. We're pilgrims here. Like, this is not our final destination. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. And to strike that balance well is really challenging in these times, because just the whole culture, it's rampant. Like, the worldly culture is give yourself away, show everything, just me culture. And it's just, and it says in the end times, we'll be lovers of ourselves, right? And so we're really coming to that. And so what we're trying to do is learn how to be in the world, but not of the world. So it's like, what does that look like? And it's not just young women showing, I mean, it's young men who are looking at pornography. Like, Blake, lay that out there. You struggled with that.
Yeah, I struggle with a lot of things. I mean, that's definitely one that, I mean, pornography is a tough thing because it's an addiction and there's spiritual contracts there. There's demonic oppression in there. and
it's everywhere.
And it's everywhere.
Accessible.
And what you don't know is how that's standing in the way of your blessing. Like, you haven't considered how this thing that you're obsessed with, that you know, if you're honest, because you don't want to tell anybody else, isn't great, isn't holy, God isn't going to bless, is also like very distracting. You're obsessed with this thing that's not going to get you more. You're likely missing opportunity because of this compulsion that you have, right? Like, you don't even know because you're, of your compulsion. And it's obviously a whole nother conversation. Pornography wants to destroy your marriage. It wants to get in the way. Or
never get you married.
Or never get you married, in the way of your relationships, and it's an amazing day of freedom when you are delivered of pornography. I think it was like 2012 or 2013 when I've been completely delivered of pornography.
And we were married in 2006. So
right.
Even 6 years into our marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
Still struggling with that. You didn't know. Going to church, tithing, seeking the Lord, being gripped by this addiction, and what you don't think, because you don't want to admit to yourself how this thing that seems unrelated to your purpose, that seems unrelated to your goals, it seems unrelated to your destiny, it seems unrelated to your business.
But God's a personal God. He cares about all
of
it.
Affecting all these other things, because you're losing the alignment. You're eroding your power. You're being distracted by this thing. And it's amazing. You haven't considered the power that comes from freedom. When you are free of this addiction, whether it's pornography or it's addiction of getting approval from other people, all these things are weights and chains that are keeping you bound. And so you're not free to create. You're not free to express. You're not free to bless. You're not free to lead. You're bound to these
Because you're always
things.
looking for the next
Right.
hit or the next thing rather than like, what's the next door the Lord's opening for me? It's
And that's-
probably not that page you're looking at. Like,
Right. And see, that's the point of the wilderness. As we said before, God makes everybody promises. Now, whether it said many are called, but few are chosen. Whether you decide to follow him is up to you. Okay. He's already done his part. He chose you. He put you on this earth with a vision, with a gift, with a purpose, with a calling. You have to choose. But when you decide that you want to follow him, as we've shared before in the wilderness journey, he's going to take you out of Egypt and then take Egypt out of you before that he can empower you to go step in and rule and reign in your promised land. And so these things, he wants to remove them because there's a place that you've seen. There's a place you're trying to get to. What you have to be 100% honest with yourself right now is you're likely not going to experience the fullest expression of that when you still struggle with fear of man, pornography, distraction, all these other things that are preventing you that you want to tell yourself are unrelated, and they're not. They're very related.
yeah. I feel like in a way I was living a double life for a lot of years. So like I had one side, like you said, a lot of people comment and they have a good heart and you can tell by the comments they want more, but then you see pictures and it's like, well, how does this line up with what you're going after or what are you going after? And so I lived that, like I had this one side that was like straight A student, following the rules, like trying to do everything right, make my way up the ladder of education and success and be, keep my stuff in order and be on time and trying to like do things right. And then I had this other side that was like always pulling against that. And just full disclosure, like I basically, my out from all the trauma, all the stuff I dealt with, I felt like smoking weed helped me like get to this place where I felt some peace and some happiness. And so I kind of stayed stoned for like, I think I got high the first time when I was maybe 13 or 14 and smoked on and off through high school and then college, like smoked a lot. And then even in my 20s, even after I was like called by the Lord and I knew it, I still smoked weed. I had a pipe in my car. And so it was like, and that's not the only thing. I mean, I shoplifted, I dressed how I described, so I was like living this double life with these two kind of parallel things. And the Lord doesn't want us to live double-minded. He doesn't want us to live double-hearted. He wants us to live in one alignment with him. And so the longer that we allow these sort of parallel lives to exist within us, they pull us away from him. He's this way.
And
your
you're
heart,
a divided house on the inside.
Yes. And so it wasn't until I was probably, I even smoked after we had kids, after we had our first kid. Like I was in my early 30s before I finally was like, it seemed like every time I smoked, something would go really wrong. Like my car wouldn't start, or I would get really achy and a terrible headache, or something would break. And it was just like over and over again. It was almost like the Lord was showing me like, look what happens every time. It's not good. And I started to pay attention, I think, because my discernment was starting to sharpen.
As much as God might want to be showing you, you also were starting to move into places where that couldn't go. Mm-hmm. Right? When you stay in Egypt, Egyptians things feel normal. Mm-hmm. But when you start to live this other life and you don't do something that's not integral, that's not congruent with who you've become, it doesn't fit. And it's uncomfortable. And it's cognitive dissonance. You have become someone that doesn't do that anymore.
And before you've really been through a wilderness season and had some of this stripped away, it's like easy to make excuses. Like, well, I smoke weed because, I have a lot of trauma. And so that is kind of my personal therapy. And, I'm not taking pharmaceuticals for it, but weed is a natural thing. So it helps me. Like I said all these things to myself. And one day my mom was like, I was giving her a hard time because at the time she was struggling with alcohol addiction. And I was like, well, Mom, blah, 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 just kind of getting on her case. And she was like, well, Hopi, you smoke marijuana and that's against the laws of the land. And according to the word, we're not supposed to do that either. She's like, at least what I'm drinking is legal. So here we are, like, making excuses for our sins. But when she said that, it was like, it's just, so you start hearing things and you start sharpening in your discernment and you stop making excuses. And you get to this point where you can't make excuses for it anymore. Like you run out of excuses. And I feel like that's what the wilderness season is for. Like you literally get so far out there eventually. There's no time, there's no room, there's no reason to make excuses anymore because you're just laid bare before him and you're stripped of all these things that used to define you and they just don't anymore.
And why are you laid bare and stripped? You're laid bare and stripped because he's removed the stuff that isn't you. He's removed the things that can't go with you into your destiny. And so ultimately you're asking yourself this question, how bad do I really want what I say I want? And that's a decision we're making every day. No matter how high you go up, there's always likely something in the way. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times there's something that we're used to, that familiar with, that we don't want to let go of.
It's an idol.
It's an idol, but it's in the way of you being fully who you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And, we say stripped and laid bare so he can do these things to us. He's a good God. He's a kind surgeon. He's not trying to cut us, and hurt us. He's trying to mold and shape us and form us into who we are supposed to be in the first place, which is a beautiful creation that is holy, that is perfect, that doesn't have all that dross, that doesn't have the sin, that doesn't need excuses because we're just pure. And so, you have to get to that place where you trust him, that he knows what he's doing and you're in good hands.
Yeah, I think early in my journey, I didn't understand holiness. It's really what we're saying. Kind of said all this to come to this. Is the concept of holiness as being set apart. And when you're early in your journey and you don't know the Father's heart and you haven't been very far, holiness seems like a bad word. And it sounds like a
too hard
buzzkill or killjoy. And it's going to remove all your fun. It's because you haven't really understood what it's there to do, because holiness is this pure place of alignment where power flows.
And joy.
Where you're powerful, where you're joyful, where you have peace, and it cannot be replicated. You can try to accomplish the peace, the joy in these other ways, but it does not have the same purity to it. And when you've experienced this purity of peace, of freedom, of joy, of power, the ability to make a difference and to help, you're like, man, this is what life is worth living.
Yeah. I was listening to Steve and Wendy Backlund. I don't know if you've heard of them or followed them, but they, I think, came to faith in the 70s. And Steve Backlund said, there's no high like the Most High.
Yeah.
And that's true. There's no joy that you can get from any other substance, any other person, any other peaceful, walk on the beach that you can compare to what you can get from the Lord. And it's always available. It's in us.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we weave something in that I think about a lot that may help some people. And I want to weave in energy. Okay.
Now are you getting all new age?
Yes, maybe so. I'm getting science is what I am.
I know.
I want to, because when you start to pay attention to how energy moves through your body and your being, like you can start to get in touch with this, and you start to feel things are off or not. Because ultimately, when you're in perfect alignment with God, you're just like this. People could say a pure vessel, right? You're like, it's like when you're tuning the channel on an old radio, right? You could turn the dial, right? You're tuning the static out of it, and when the static is gone, it's pure channel, right? And it is clear, and you can hear, and that's what I'm talking about. And we are like an antenna where the channel can go through, and you can literally feel energy in your body, and there's something going on in there biologically, chemically, and neurologically.
You want to explain all that right now too?
No, and I can't explain all that, but what I can explain is how this feels, because everybody does experience this feeling, okay? That you don't have to be prophetic to feel this way. Everyone, if you'll take the time, can feel this, because when you learn to tune your antenna, you can feel when something's out of harmony or not, okay? And then you begin to tune it more and more and more and more, and you can quickly get it in tune. And before you know this stuff, it's really hard to get back in tune. You got to go on a retreat. You got to take a long walk. You got to fast for days to be able to get your antenna in tune. Once you learn how to feel the energetic flow in your body, you can get the antenna tuned really quick, and you live a lifestyle where you stay tuned. And so now you have a lifestyle of joy, a lifestyle of peace, a lifestyle of power, right? And so,
And that's that be still and know. It's like an inner stillness where you can get to that place where even if there's chaos and noise and stuff going on around you, you can come back to that place.
right, it's where we're
to hear
fully
the still
alive
small
and fully
voice.
ourselves. There's been a lot of research in the past probably 15 years about flow state, being in a flow state. Musicians get there, athletes get there in the big game, when they can ice the shot well, everyone gets to that point, right? And in that point, it's like time stands still and you are dialed in and you're perfect with it. And that is the energetic flow that I'm talking about. Well, if you don't live in energetic alignment, then you may not experience this very much. It's a random time to experience it, and you just think it's happenstance. You think, oh, some angel came and touched me, rather than understanding like you can actually choose to live a life. And I'm weaving in holiness because this is what we're talking about here. Holiness is not a bad word. You start to understand how wonderful it is because when you feel that at an energetic alignment, right? Now you also can feel when something's not right. Conversation, there's strife coming in, and you kind of start to feel something's not fitting right, something's not comfortable, and you can decide to go with that, but then you're getting out of tune, and now you're embracing the dissonance, or you forgive or whatever, and you keep back that alignment. You become very tuned in to the alignment.
Which is so important, the company you keep, which is a
Yes.
whole other conversation, but the relationships we have. I mean, I know sometimes you're in a work relationship or a family relationship and you can't necessarily put a boundary up and get away from a person who's in your life, but a lot of voluntary relationships we have, friendships, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, like there are so many places in our lives where we can choose the company we keep. And we have to choose wisely because you might be around someone and you just kind of notice every time you're around them, you kind of want to do this thing you've been trying not to do, or
Or
every
you
time
get grumpy, or you complain.
yeah, or you're fight. I mean, and even with people who you can't necessarily cut out of your life, you can still have boundaries with them. You can still be like, I know they're going to start going down this path, but I'm not going to walk down it with them. I'll be here. Like, say you have, in our case, we have a preteen daughter and she's on this emotional roller coaster of hormones and all the things. And it's like, okay, you can go on that roller coaster ride, but I'm not going to go on it with you. I'll be here at the gate when you're ready to get off and talk about it.
Right,
So
because
it's
we
like,
can quickly ruin our day arguing with her.
oh yeah, get sucked in.
And we're not helping her or ourselves.
And she's a sweetheart, obviously, but we all.
She's 12.
Yeah, she's 12. She
About to be
goes through
13.
things.
Right. But when you become aware of it, you start to keep the antenna tuned, you start to feel when you're doing things for the wrong motives, with the wrong intentions, for the wrong reasons. You start to feel. It's like this, you start to disintegrate. You pull away from being integrated and aligned. And what you're really wanting is perfect alignment, because that's going to take you to where God wants you. That's going to take you to the promises that he has for you. And so much of your journey is about removing the things that keep you out of alignment and about training your steps. And that's really, I feel like, as I've thought about the keys to prosper over the years, they're very tactical. We've studied them enough to understand God's heart through them. But ultimately, if you just look at what they are and how he gave them to us, they're very much do this. And what I found over time is when I just do the steps, the keys, everything lines up.
Order.
Yeah, thanks, order, honor, yoked,
yoked,
tithe, desire, thought. They all just line up when I do those things. It's amazing, like everything gets tuned in. And now you're in a place of power and like anything's possible. And you have joy right where you're at. And you know that you're moving towards your destination. But it's amazing, you start to do these things, you also stop. You start gravitating away from these other things. And so,
and the keys are just based on the word of God. So it's like when you're doing the word of God and you're obedient, it says, why do you say you love me, but you don't keep my commandments? So when you are keeping his commandments and you're walking in obedience to the word, you're following, like with Blake, he gave him the keys to prosper. You're doing these things that he's shown you to do. It's amazing. you think you're missing out on some of this other stuff, but he's bringing so much more into your life.
Because as he tunes you in, as he removes the things that don't belong, guess what he just did? He started making room for the things. See, that's really where I want to end. If you've watched till now, you probably know already what some of these things are. The hard part about it is you're identifying with something that's not you. Mm-hmm. You found belonging, you found community, you found familiarity,
comfort.
You found comfort with things that if you know now aren't serving you. And now you're going to have to choose. Do I want the destiny and purpose that God has for me, where I'm going to find the most joy, make the greatest impact?
Yep.
Or do I want to continue to live in Egypt, this life of comfort and familiarity and attention for things that can't get me there?
Yeah.
Choice is yours.
It's a big one. It's important. And the choice is moment by moment.
It's
day by day, hour by hour, like the thoughts you're thinking. You know, that's going to guide your behavior. Mm-hmm. So the emotions you're feeling, like you just constantly staying back, praying without ceasing. It's like, just, I acknowledge you, Lord. I'm back. I'm here. I'm listening, you know, because they're going to come. I remember even after I littered, but I threw the pipe out my car window on a long road trip and I was done with it. But even after that, I would have dreams about smoking weed, like for years, and it still wanted to hang on, that familiar spirit, whatever was attached to it. And so I would wake up from this dream thinking about it and kind of craving it. And so it's like, these things don't always die off easily. Some things he'll just remove it and it's like the next day you're like, I never wanted that again. Other things, it's going to be a process where you have to keep going back to him, going back to that well to get that living water to be able to refute, you know, whatever the enemy's trying to bring in.
Yeah, so some of you are in Egypt and you're wanting to walk away. Some of you it may be some really walking away, and that's going to be really hard at first, and it will be very freeing once you do it. Yeah. Right? And then some of you find yourself in a wilderness where you're in that in between, and you have these people who call you up to come back to Egypt, but you've got promised land in front of you that you're not there yet, and I'm telling you, keep going. And so if I give you any advice, you let go of the friends who are trying to pull you back to Egypt, and you go find people who are already in their promised land, who show you what kingdom living really looks like, what power really looks like, what influence and authority and impact really feels like and looks like.
Or other people who are in the wilderness legitimately seeking after the Lord.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't made it yet either, but you know their hearts. They are going after him. They're going after it. That's who you want to be with. And
if you're in your promised land and you're taking ground, here's what you got to know. Like every new territory you want, you're going to have to let go of something that keeps you. It never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops, because the process is, like we talk about the law of preparation, the process is he's constantly removing something that's not us to make room for the next piece that is us.
Yeah.
You want to go to the next place, he's going to remove something that's not you to make room for the next thing that does belong to you as you are refined. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy journey, but it's a good one. Yeah.